Thanks very much, and welcome to this AGM of 2021. I'm Dominic Wise, President of BERA, and you would have seen my report where I cover various issues, a couple of which I'm going to pick up now with Nick Johnson. But in my report, I covered the state of the discipline work, race equality policy, the ITT market review, the presidential roundtables, and some reflections on the unusual year again that we've had. However, quite a successful year, as you will hear and know. So I think the next thing is we need to move to the slides, and here they come. There we are. Okay. So the first thing then, just to highlight really, is BERA's work on a new strategic plan. So building on the work that we did under Gemma Moss's presidency, Nick Johnson and I have taken this forward with the consulting obviously with BERA Council members, and we already have a much clearer sense of the direction that we want BERA to go in. And part of the reason for this is to make sure that we use BERA's resource in the most efficient way, and that we really focus in on things that we think meet BERA's main objectives. And you can see in this slide a reminder of what we're about: enhancing the health of education as an academic discipline, championing education research, and celebrating and recognising excellence, all of which is about BERA's future. We want it to be strong and ever stronger and sustainable. Another major piece of work, and we're grateful to many people, BERA members, for helping us with this, is a really decisive moment in BERA's history, and it resulting in the race equality policy. And this isn't just a written document, a dead written document. This is something that already BERA is measuring itself against ambitious targets, necessary targets. It also was based on some proper analysis of data that BERA holds about its activities and representation of people as part of those activities. And so BERA Council adopted this ambitious policy and action plan, and we hope and expect to improve issues around racial inequalities and, of course, the wider research community. We're bringing BERA's resources and expertise to bear on these issues, and there may well be more to say on this today as we go through.
I'll do some of that now. In terms of, in the papers for today's meeting, there is our update, which we've committed to bringing to this meeting on an annual basis. It's obviously less than a full year since we adopted the policy, but we have made some areas of good progress, particularly around representation in our governance, which is one of the most glaring things when we produce the data. And we've been very proactive in addressing that, and hopefully that will cascade through the organisation. We are making some, albeit limited, progress in our publications outputs, particularly around journal editors and members of editorial boards, and making that as a priority every time we go through a recruitment exercise. Pleased to say we have made good progress on the diversity of the speakers at all of our events, and in particular was pleased to see that half of our conference speakers were ethnically diverse, which was a really positive move for us, and also in terms of our grants and funding. And I think one of the things that I think it's important to stress here is how much it's not just about BERA's own activities, it's how we can fund wider work on this. And the fact that our small grants fund this year was dedicated to issues of race and education, and the curriculum investigation grant, and so between those two, that's over £40,000 of funding towards looking at issues of racial equality within education. And we are almost at the point of awarding the contract for the piece of work for our State of the Discipline project, which Dominic will talk to in a moment. But as part of that project, we are commissioning work looking at equality and diversity within the discipline, particularly in terms of career progression, seniority, professorships, those kind of things. And we've had the tender process for that piece of work. And as I say, we are hopefully, even by the end of this week, if not early next week, we'll be in a position to make that award as well. So we're, as well as getting our own house in order, we're hoping to address wider issues within the discipline on that. And I said that the action plan and the reporting is there. It will come back annually, and happy to take some questions on that. But we have changed quite a lot of systems and processes as a result of having that plan. Some of this comes up in individual reports, but what we thought we'd do, just as by way of introduction, is just give some headline figures for the year. As Dominic said, it's been yet another strange year, and we probably have another strange year ahead of us, although hopefully not quite as strange as the last two, but you never know, and it's unwise to make too many predictions in that. But I think in the past year, we've hosted over 60 of these live events, including conference. That's over 300 live hours of content. So if you wanted to go back on the website and spend all of the Christmas break watching BERA events, you could comfortably do that if you've completed Netflix so far. We've had over 2,500 people live at those events, plus the 900 people that were taking part in conference. And I think something that we've learned is particularly important is how many people go back and watch these events afterwards. And how much more accessible that makes it all around the world, really. And the fact that we've got another 2,500 people who've gone back and watched the events after they've happened means that these events are actually, as imperfect as they are in some respects, are reaching far more people and involving far more people than some of our physical events used to be able to do. The blog, and I'm sure Jerry might talk to this a little bit more when he does his report, but I mean, in the past year, more than 150 posts and 160,000 unique page views, which is a new record. And again, talking of the international reach, just seeing just how widely across the world that blog has gone, and it's been an incredible platform. And I think on BERA's behalf, I'd like to thank Jerry and his fellow editors, Alison Fox and Rowie Napasi, for the work they put into it, and sort of the creativity and the energy that the blog gives to BERA's activities. And I mean, publishing sort of at least 3 posts a week is a lot of work for a small editorial team, and we're very grateful for the work that they put into that. So, next slide, please. I think just in terms of our journals, again, thanks to the editors and the editorial boards for all the work they've put in. We were delighted to see significantly increased impact factors for Burge and BJet this year, and actually BJet's ranking amongst generic ed tech journals. It really come on strength to strength with the current editorial team who've taken the journal to new heights. And again, great thanks to all our editors across all 4 journals for their work. Dom, I'll hand over to you now.
Yeah, and so the State of the Discipline initiative and project is something that's close to my heart, and I'm grateful to all BERA colleagues really who've also seen how important this is, and have basically suggested a survey probably a couple of years ago actually, and it led to much more than that. And we're really focusing this on, you know, what is education as an academic discipline, as a field, but more importantly, in terms of the surveys, you know, what are conditions like for people working in education research? In fact, my recent blog on this tried to highlight some of the conditions, but what we really need is some robust evidence from people working in education research to tell us, you know, quite what it's like, and therefore what the issues are. And this will help the education research discipline, the discipline of education as a whole, but will also, of course, be important, very important to BERA members. And all this work is informed by what we know from working with BERA members and our work leading the various different committees and so on. So very excited about this next stage of the State of the Discipline project. We've made the appointment of the team who are going to be undertaking this. So very exciting. We're right at the beginning of this new part of the journey.
Another highlight this year has been the research commission that we funded that produced the manifesto for education for environmental sustainability. They were incredibly busy and active throughout the year, co-producing this manifesto with a whole host of practitioners and actually young people themselves writing that manifesto. 3 background policy briefing papers were produced and are available on the website, aimed at different audiences. And then at the start of last month, they launched the manifesto. It was an outside conference, by far our best attended event online. We had well over 250 people there taking part in that. We tried a new social function after the event, which again worked quite well in terms of networking opportunities. And just thanks to the team that led on that research commission, it really has marked a sort of a landmark publication for BERA, and actually they'll be presenting to Council in January on the commission and what that might mean for BERA's own work around sustainability and future plans as well. So other things that again are highlighted throughout various other reports, but just wanted to bring out here in terms of the BERA podcast is growing listeners and subscribers. Please do check it out on your usual podcast platforms if you're into that kind of thing. The curriculum investigation grant there, again, this is school-based led research in partnership with higher education institutions. We published 14 reports from last year's small grants on education and COVID. And they're all available on the website and have got quite a lot of traction and being used in schools and in other places. And then the small grants this year in terms of race and education.
I just want to add to that, one of the features of BERA's success and continuing success is the amount of new grants that we've been able to offer. And I think that's an extremely important part, that BERA seed corns, all the the researchers who apply and who are successful in, obviously in a competitive peer-reviewed process, helped very much by our College of Reviewers, which is another relatively new part of BERA's work.
And I think just highlighting again, Jerry might talk to this more, but the fact that despite all the difficulties, our membership this year is now over 2,700, which is an all-time high for BERA. We are, I think, comfortably the 3rd biggest educational research association in the world. We might even be chasing down the Germans in second place, but we'll have to see what their final end of year figures are. But it's thanks to all of you who are the members for staying loyal. If you're new to us this year, then thank you for joining, and we hope that we are a community that you want to continue to be a part of. And I think stressing there that we've got over 600 teacher members, which is a phenomenal achievement in terms of being that link between the classroom and research. And that's something that we've really set out to do. And the fact that, as Dominic said, some of the seed corn funding, some of the specific grants, the doctoral fellowships and things that we offer, this year alone is almost £100,000 in terms of grant funding we've been able to give out to members in the wider research community this year. So just in that vein, just to flag up current things that are open. The next BERA doctoral fellowship is still open for applications, as are the annual doctoral thesis and master's dissertation awards. They are open until early January, so please do publicise that around your networks. We also are currently seeking nominations to join council next year. And again, the link is there. Closing date for that is in the new year too. So please do, if you want to contribute more to BERA and think you can be part of the academic leadership of the organisation, please do check out that and think about expressing an interest in that. Yeah. In terms of the questions, as we said, we're going to hand over, or Dom will take us through now the individual committee chairs presenting their reports. If people do have questions, either based on the written reports or on people say, please put them in, please try and make clear who the question is aimed at. We will probably try and get questions as people go through rather than have everyone come back at the end. But Don will field the questions and
Yeah.
pass them on, but please do try and make clear who they're aimed at when you're typing them.
I think I'm going to suggest also that our colleagues and chairs of the committees hand over to each other if there aren't any particular questions, rather than me needing to sort of step in each time. So let's see how that goes. Anyway, so first of all, then over to Ros, Chair of Publications Committee.
Thanks very much, Dominic, and thanks for stealing a lot of my thunder, which will make my report even shorter. You've all seen the paper. As you can see, there's lots going on in terms of the publications work of the organisation. The open access developments continue to be a major concern to us, but I have to say Nick has been working tirelessly on our behalf through this Societies Publishers Coalition. And we're trying, obviously, to try and protect our interests in that respect, because many of our members are not part of higher education institutions where transitional arrangements are in place. And indeed, we have lots of people who want to publish in our journals who wouldn't be covered by that. So, you know, we're monitoring the field there, and we're doing what we can to actively protect our interests. And I know that Nick has addressed that in much more detail in his report, so I won't dwell on that now. But against that backdrop, I'd like to say there's lots to celebrate, I think, this year in terms of what our journals have been doing. You may have noticed we have a new look design for our different journals, which is a sort of BERA kind of design, which I think is wonderful. You've got the details in the paper of all our editorial teams. So I'd like to thank everyone who steps up to do this work. All the information about special issues, the various awards that different journals have given out. And again, this has been an opportunity for us in this sense. The fact that people have not been able to travel places has meant that we've thought carefully about our resources and how best to use these, and have offered opportunities for the various editorial teams to make special initiatives in the last year. And you will see the details in the paper about that. So I think that's been a very interesting development, despite the difficult circumstances we find ourselves in. I know the information about the impact factors that we want to celebrate has already been shared by Nick, which is fantastic news. The review of education, we're still continuing to seek promotion to the SSCI, and we hope to have some positive news on that in the next year or two. The blog, again, we've already talked about this. It is amazing that the readership is so broad across the world. So this is a fantastic opportunity for our members to get their work out there to different places. So, you know, if you're not a regular reader of the blog, it's well worth looking at this. It's interesting, actually, we also have special issues for the blog, as we do in our journals. And there's also curated collections called the BERA Bites. They're really useful if you are thinking about teaching. I've certainly used them myself. So, you know, these are a good resource beyond just reading individual blog entries. Research Intelligence, which is our membership magazine, that continues to be guest edited. We're finding that's working really well. So each issue has the theme, and members are invited to contribute, put themselves forward to edit one of these issues. So if you're interested, please do that. There's a form on the website which has instructions about how to go about doing that. But this it goes to all our members. So again, it's a good opportunity to get involved if you think that's something you'd like to do. We do have, as you can see, a raft of other publications coming from the roundtables, commissioned reports, projects, the BCF curriculum investigation grants, and also the small grants that we fund the reports from those. So you see there's a whole range of stuff going on. But lastly, I want to finish by just mentioning the new initiative we've got involved in with Emerald Publishing. So this is going to be a book series, very excited about this, accessible introductions to key interdisciplinary topics which impact research and practice in education. So the topics for the first few volumes, which isn't in my paper because that was written before this has been agreed, there is going to be mental health and well-being, so a volume on that, diversity and inclusion, and a volume on sustainability. So we're reaching out to our special interest groups and our members to see who would be interested in contributing to that series. So please look out for that. But this, we hope, will be the start of many volumes in the series. And, so if people have ideas, we'd also be interested in hearing from you. So it remains for me to say, I think, I want to thank particularly Ross, our publications manager, because his work is immense to get all these publications completed. I want to thank everyone who's involved with our journals, whether it's as an editor on the editorial team or a reviewer or author, because without you, we wouldn't be where we are today. Okay, I can't see the questions, so I'm assuming, Dom, unless there are any.
No questions to pick up just now, so thank you.
So I'll pass on to, I think it's Jerry who's next.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you very much indeed. Welcome, everybody. Just picking up very quickly on the point that Nick hinted at and Ros has mentioned in terms of the BERA blog. It's a privilege to sort of be part of that whole process, and I want to thank Alison Fox and Rowena Passy. And the quick note really from me before I start on the engagement committee is that we are looking over the next few months to expand the editorial team on the BERA blog. So just if you can spread the word and get people to contact me if they have an interest, and I can sort of talk through some of the work that we do there. Engagement committee report. I'm going to work on the assumption that people have read this, but I'm going to dive in immediately with my thanks, and my thanks go directly to Ruth Boyask, Oliver Hooper, Kevin Smith, Marlon Moncrief, Jan Georgeson, and Carmel Capel for their all of the work they've put in onto this committee. Sadly, we lose both Ruth and Kevin this year as a result of the end of their sort of terms on it. The good news is that we're welcoming Ming Cheng, Leanne Henderson, Shauna Sweeney, and Melissa Jogi to this committee. It's great to see new faces on the committee. And just picking up on that growing membership, I'll come back to that in a moment, but the fact that we have 625 teachers now as a part of BERA, it's great having Shauna Sweeney join the committee. She represents the sort of school, if you like, contingent of everything that we're focusing on in terms of what we're doing. Nick has already highlighted the fact that against all expectations, I think we all were 18 months ago, if not longer, we're worried about the impact the pandemic would have in terms of membership. And it's a credit to the BERA office staff and Sarah's work as engagement committee manager, that the fact that exactly the opposite has happened. It's extraordinary that we're now looking at 2,717 members. That's the largest membership to date. As the fact that we've got over 600 teachers and a rising student number is a reflection on so many aspects, the increasing professionalization of the BERA office, but also a fantastic array of new resources that you can that I'm sure everybody is familiar with now on the ever-changing and increasing quality of the BERA website. The virtual event recordings have been a massive impact in terms of how many more people are actually accessing and being made aware of BERA. So it's really exciting and a joy to be a part of this committee as a result of it. One of the problems that we've continually faced over the many years has been the sort of the England dominance of BERA, if you like, the British Educational Research Association. And one of the things that's been so lovely is to see 41% rise in membership from Wales and 17% rise from Scotland. Those numbers are obviously have to be seen within the light of the membership of both of those countries is smaller, but nevertheless there is it's exciting to see that. It's reflective of so much of the work that we're doing. A lot more work to be done, but nevertheless, it's good to see that work is actually being paid off. Nick and Dom have already spoken about the race equality policy that is sort of growing in momentum. Part of that process is work that we're doing on a BERA mentoring scheme, and we're still very much in the process of developing that, but there's there'll be more news on that over the next few months, but it's exciting stuff, and it's very much a response to the race equality policy that was mentioned much earlier. I want to thank Oliver Hooper and his amazing team in terms of the ECR network. The papers reveal so much in terms of what's going on there. I want to welcome Gihan Ismail to that extraordinary team, and that team is operating both at a national and regional network, and is really giving us lots of exciting ideas about what we can do in terms of the future, not just in terms of SIGs, but so many of the forums and networks that we have. I'm not going to mention the equality and diversity policy because that's been covered. I suppose one thing that's worth acknowledging is that BERA has been accepted back into the World Educational Research Association, WERA, and I've mentioned Gihan Ismail, but she's actually the new WERA ECR representative on that network, which is great to know. And I suppose the final thing to briefly say, oh no, what have I missed? I've missed out a couple of things. The BERA Undergraduate Award has been launched and awarded this year. Nick has already mentioned the BERA Doctoral Fellowship. That the deadline for that fellowship finishes on the 12th of January. So please spread the word if you can, as much as you can do, because we're just hungry to see more applicants for that. And another exciting development, which won't come into play until 2022-2023, but it has now got final approval, has been the BERA Student Research Award. That's an award that is going to be targeting schools and pupils to encourage, foster, nurture school pupil, school student engagement with research, and there's more on that in the paper. Finally, the BCF, a quick sort of reminder that the next BCF event will be taking place on March the 24th, 2021. That's the spotlight on SEND. So please spread the word for that. And again, Nick's already mentioned the BCF curriculum investigation grants. If you've got an interest to be involved in that in the future calls for that, by all means contact me, spread the word. Those of you that know me, you'll know that I'm extremely quick in responding to emails and telephone calls, and I love jabbering to anybody about any of the initiatives that we're doing. But it's great, it's exciting, and it's a real privilege to be a chair of this particular committee. Happy now to take questions.
Well, thank you, Jerry, very much indeed for that full report. I think we'll no questions to address just now, so let's move on. Thank you, and we're going on to Valerie.
Good morning, everyone. I have nothing really to add to the report that's in the papers, which provides a summary of what has been a really successful year that we've had running a diverse range of well-attended online events. Nick's already provided detail about some of the numbers around the events, and I think I was just thinking as he was mentioning all those numbers and how I think that's driving our membership rise in many ways, that actually running these as online events is a relatively new venture for BERA, which was dictated by the health situation. But as an organisation, we've used that time to really build up our expertise. And it's really pleasing to see how many more people can attend BERA events when we're running them online, as well as them being more sustainable. So that's been a highlight for me for this year. Just to mention also that the annual conference for next year, the abstract submission is now open. So once you've finished catching up on the things you didn't manage to see from the online conference last year and caught up with your blog reading, abstract submission is open, and do get your abstracts in as soon as possible. And apart from that, I would like to thank Conference and Events Committee. It's been a challenging year in many ways, with some strategic decisions to make, and I'd like to thank all of the members of Conference and Events Committee for their commitment to getting those decisions right, for BERA as an organisation, and particularly thinking about the safety of our members as the health situation continues. And I'd also like to thank the BERA office team, and in particular I'd like to mention and have minuted my thanks to Dior Webb and Meta Nielsen. Probably no one is aware, I don't think even I am aware, of the enormous amount of work that goes on behind the scenes when we're setting up the online events, and particularly the annual conference when we had it online this year. So I'd really like to thank Dior and Meda for their hard work and their commitment to BERA. So I've made it nice and quick and short. Are there any questions, Dom?
No, thanks also to you, Vari, for your report. We'll carry on, I think, and move on back to Nick.
Yeah, do you want to put the camera on, Dom?
Yes, I will indeed put the camera on.
I'm going to be very brief because I think I've covered things earlier. What I would draw people's attention to in my report, as Ros has mentioned earlier, is some of the ongoing developments around open access. It's still very much a moving goalpost, and far be it for me to say, but in terms of a government policy that's not necessarily been fully thought through and the implications considered before being enacted. But we will see some of those implications play out in the next year or so, and work to deliver as best we can, both for ourselves as an organisation, but also for the wider research community within that. And again, just to echo some of the comments of others, I'd also like to just here pay particular thanks to the staff team who've been working in, as everyone has, ongoing challenging circumstances. We've also had quite a lot of churn within a small team. Both Marie Blythe and Sarah Fleming are on maternity leave at the moment. So we've had Meda and Paddy join us for this year. And people have been picking up the baton, doing inductions and handovers via Zoom, and learning the ropes and taking it up. And hopefully from an external point of view, it's appeared pretty seamless at times. So I'd just like to thank all colleagues in the office for all their efforts during the past year. And I will then hand over to Sean to talk about the money.
Thank you very much, Nick. Colleagues, I'm Sean Hayes. I'm Treasurer of BERA, as you probably know. Hard to believe, but this is my 6th annual report as Treasurer. And I'm very pleased to say that we have presented to you a healthy set of accounts for the 2020 year. Shows us to be in a strong financial position, and thankfully not too adversely affected by the global COVID-19 pandemic, although the net effect was that our income and expenditure were both down, so there wasn't actually a loss at all in terms of total funds. In fact, at the end of December 2020, we had a total fund balance of just over 2.2 million, compared to 1.85 million at the end of 2019. So in effect, we've had a net increase of nearly 350,000, or 15.5% in our total reserves. So we remain and maintain a healthy set of reserves. It's the first time they have ever gone above 2 million. And in terms of where we maintain those, they're split between a sum invested within a managed investment account and cash that is held in relatively quick access accounts. Our level of reserves means that the association continues to operate on a very secure financial footing. And although I said the COVID-19 pandemic did impact on turnover in 2020, both income and expenditure were down. We expect those to bounce back in 2021 and certainly in 2022. You've heard a lot from other chairs of committees and the professional office about our ability to plan for new ventures, and we're in a financially secure position, I believe, to do that. In relation to the professional office, BERA is exploring the possibility of becoming its own employer for the professional office, and there's some detail about that in the papers, but I just want to say that I would hope to be able to report to the AGM on the successful conclusion of that project in my 2022 report next year. Just to say that that project for BERA to become its own employer is built on the principle agreed by Council that any new terms and conditions should not lead to a diminution in what BERA staff are offered, and where direct replication of UCL terms which they're currently on are not possible, we would seek equal or better alternatives. As you probably know, as Treasurer, I chair the Finance and Operations Committee, And I'd like to say that it is functioning very effectively, fully implementing its brief to provide support, advice and challenge for the professional office. The committee has strong members who bring a range of skills and support to the association, and the meetings are well supported by BERA's Chief Executive Officer and other staff in the professional office. And a big shout to Nick and David Chatterjee in the office who provide us with excellent support, papers and input for those meetings. I would like to thank the committee members as well, as they do help make the meetings function very successfully. Just to mention in passing, I've told you that we have quite a substantial sum invested in our managed investment fund. That currently stands at 1.15 million. And when writing this report, the value as at the 18th of October was just under 1.5 million. So at that point, the value was 338,000 above the capital invested, so 23% increase. But of course, colleagues, when we're talking about investment, we should always bear in mind that the value of investments can go up as well as down. The investments also give us an income of around 2% a year, which is very helpful. So more broadly, as Treasurer, I will continue to encourage financial stability within the association and will aim to ensure that the volume of and balance of income from membership, publication, events and other sources is sustainable throughout my second term of office and, of course, hopefully way beyond that. Thank you. And
Sean,
back to Domin.
Thank you. I have a question for you in a moment related to investments and fossil fuels. But just before I get you to address the question, it's of course important to remember that we are required under the charity laws to make sure we have sufficient money in the bank, basically, don't we, in case of extreme events and so on, so that BERA can continue to operate. So I think I'll turn to this question. To Rachel Shanks has asked this question: is it ensured that the reserves are not invested in fossil fuels?
I believe that to be the case.
Yeah. Our investments policy is reviewed on a regular basis, and we're actually just transferring funds to our investment partners, but we broadly in line with our investments policy. That's something that we seek sort of assurances on a regular basis from our investment company from.
And indeed, we've relatively recently moved to an even more secure and hopefully profitable investment arrangement, haven't we, with all kinds of checks and balances. Okay, Sean, thank you very much indeed. I'm now going to say some very brief final closing remarks. First of all, could I warmly thank all of the members of the BERA members who've attended today. You know, we know how exhausting, frankly, it is sometimes attending lots of digital events. I think we all feel in the BERA, among the BERA office team and other colleagues involved with BERA, that we now really value the opportunities for physical meetings again, and we've had some. They're even more precious than they used to be. Most of all, I want to thank Nick himself. I work closely with Nick all the time, and it's a real pleasure. And I also want to thank Nick's team, the BERA office team, who, you know, in my view, have done extraordinary things to innovate and change practices, partly because of the pandemic, but also partly because we're not standing still. We're moving forward, we're innovating and building BERA from strength to strength. And one of my little aims is that we do indeed overtake the Germans in membership numbers, and who knows, one day we might overtake AERA. But that probably is a bit of a it's a geographical challenge, I think, as well as other challenge. I also want to thank warmly our committee chairs who've reported today, all our BERA council members. As you will see in my blog, I had a small rant about free work in my blog, Who Wants to Be an Academic? But I do take this rather seriously, that, you know, all academic disciplines require work to make them keep going, frankly, to help them generate the new knowledge that's passed on to all new generations. And so this is not an inconsequential talking point and debate. So I really do thank my colleagues, and also, of course, all BERA members, all 2,716, or you know, this is incredible. And all those people are themselves active, promoting education as an academic discipline, promoting the links between, you know, the close to practice links between research and practice and policy. And that practice is quite, and policy is quite wide ranging. Yes, it crucially happens in inverted commas classrooms, which of course includes higher education classrooms right down to early years settings and so on. So may I wish everyone a peaceful break when it arrives. Let's keep our fingers crossed and hope for the most positive and optimistic outcomes in terms of the global challenges we're all facing. Thank you again, and I'm concluding the AGM for 2021. Thanks and goodbye.
Bye, everyone.